Hi, I'm Helen Muntz, USU Extension gardening expert. Today I would like to share with you a little secret on how to save your annuals so that you can replant them next year. Now, not all annuals overwinter very well, but some plants such as geraniums, euphorbia, canna lilies, dahlias, even some shade annuals such as the asparagus fern can overwinter quite well in the house. So it's still September, a little bit early for starting to plan on overwintering. In fact, most of the time my annuals look awesome in September. But I do have a pretty peaked looking container here. So I just want to show you what I've done. I've taken and dug out with a trowel a couple of these plants here that I'm planning on keeping. The two that I use over and over are this euphorbia, that's not the euphorbia, right here. This one's called Diamond Frost. It's absolutely beautiful in containers or in the garden. So you give it a pretty substantial haircut before you transplant it into a pot. And then same with the geraniums. These do wonderful indoors. They don't even necessarily need a lot of light. If they don't have a lot of indoor light, they'll just kind of go through a sort of false dormancy period. And you'll get a lot of brown leaves that sort of drop off throughout the winter, so they'll need a little bit more cleaning if they don't get a lot of light. If they do have a substantial amount of light during the winter, they'll continue to grow and bloom, which is fun as well as an indoor plant, and then you can take them back out. But again, you want to really pinch these back quite vigorously before you transplant. We've had some root damage there. A lot of these leaves are going to end up falling off as it transitions into the indoor environment. So just like that, and then you transplant it into another pot to take in the house. So here I've transplanted my geranium just into a regular pot from the nursery that I've kept. Just using potting soil, normal potting soil. And then my euphorbia had a bit of a smaller root, so I just put him in a smaller pot like that to save some space. You can also use purchase pots that have a catch tray in them, which is nice so that you're not getting water on your floor or your counter while it's indoors. Now it's important to mention that you won't be watering quite as often while they're indoors as you would while they're outdoors. So maybe about every other week, depending on how dry it is in your home and how much light they're exposed to. Bulb plants such as dahlias and canna bulbs are some great annuals that are pretty simple to overwinter. The important part is how to dig them out and how to store them. So here is one of my dahlia bulbs. This is a dahlia, and you can see it's got a lot of powder on it, powdery look to it. It looks very gray. Normally the foliage would look really dark purple. So it does have powdery mildew, which is pretty common in our dahlias around here, and a lot of our landscape plants actually. So this is one that I'm ready to pull out. Normally you would wait until we have at least a light frost, so it starts to pull some of those good nutrients down into the root before you try to store the root. So what I've done here is I've dug out the bulb. I try to make a pretty big hole before I pull it, just to reduce any mechanical damage on the bulb itself. So this is what we're looking for down here, are these bulbs, and these are what we're going to save. So they need a little while to cure before we store them, but for just purposes of this demonstration, what I'm going to do is snap this off. I forgot to grab my scissors, so I'm just going to pull them for now for demonstration. You want to leave about a 4 to 6 inch stem and then let that sit and dry for a couple weeks, and then you can cut it back. And then after that, how you store these bulbs, you don't want to pull them apart individually until you're ready to plant them in the spring. But for winter time, you can store them in something like just a regular tree pot with a garbage bag lined. You can use something like perlite, you can use sawdust, you can use dry potting soil, any of those kind of mediums to store it. And it's just a nice cushiony way to store the bulbs, just like so. And you can stack them all in there and store them in a cool and dark location in your home until spring when it's time to plant. Overwintering annuals is a fun and great thing to do. Most of the plants that you see here in my containers behind me, I've had for several years, and they do just fantastically. And I do save a bit of money on my shopping. So hopefully that's been helpful for you. And if you have any questions, you can always contact your local county agent or visit garden.usu.edu. Thanks for watching.